Meeting to order. First on the agenda is open forum. There's nobody here and we do not have any emails to read. So we'll skip 3 because there's no responses and move on into 4, which is Rural Reg Committee recommendations for a couple policy updates and changes. Tom?
Okay, so the Rules and Regulations Committee met last week. If you have not already viewed that recording, I encourage you to do so. The board has a tendency to, the Rules and Regs goes very in depth. The board not so much because that's the task of the Rules and Regulations Committee. So we have several that are coming up for a first reading. The first one is policy 1.03.4, which is Charitable Giving Committee. We've had this policy in place since 2017, and based upon how things have gone over this since the inception of the committee, we decided to make some changes to really standardize how the awards are granted. We did these changes in consultation with the committee chair. So this is, we're consulting with the committee that's actually doing the work. And so we feel that this will help give the committee more guidance for the future. I encourage viewers at home to read the proposed policy and to view last week's Rules and Regulations presentation. Do you want me to go into any more detail?
Tom, do you know if that presentation is online? Because I had a hard time trying to find it. All I could find was July's.
I will check if it's not, but we should have our video in the packet and all of that posted, but I will check.
We'll make sure it's up by the end of the day. If it's not up now, then we'll make sure it's up by the end of the day.
Because I'll have some questions because I couldn't view it.
Okay. Do you want me to go into more depth since you couldn't?
Not on the charitable giving, on the next one.
Got it. Okay, on the next one, I'll go a little bit slower then. All right, any questions on this one?
Just a comment, it's really just another look, an up-to-date look at where we were and where we want to go, because life changes.
Yeah. So this will go in front of the board at next week's regular meeting for the first reading of 2 required readings. So if this continues forward, you'll see at next month's Rules and Regulations Committee meeting, next month's work session, and next month's regular meeting, which will get us to 2. The next one we're going to look at is 2.11, which is Director Election Process. Oh, we have the wrong one. Yeah, this is not the right one on the screen. Let's see. On your tablet, if you go to your tablet, you will see the changes that are proposed. So to back up just a little bit, this policy had gone through and we had, the board had voted, done their first vote on that one. And coincidentally, I received a industry professional article on directors, and it was on this exact subject. And so I got a hold of JB, who is the chair of the Rules and Regulations Committee, and I said, hey, there's some really good stuff in this article. I think we want to have a second look at policy 2.11, and these changes would be extensive enough that it would require us to go back for a first vote. So we talked about it, and then we brought it to the Rules and Regulations Committee. So the main changes are in Roman numeral 3, which is on candidate qualifications. And so we've added a few in here based upon the insights that I learned from reading this article. The first one, the first ad would be the candidate must be a member for at least a year from date of purchase of an unapproved or improved. Given and we talked about this at the Rules and Regulations Committee meeting, but we're a $38 million a year corporation. We have 12 departments. We have a lot of moving parts, and it's great motivation when someone moves right in and then wants to run for the board. I applaud the motivation, but maybe we just need to have that person just slow down a little bit, get a little bit of an understanding of the POA, and then run after that. Encourage them to serve on a committee and get some a semblance of what all is in the POA.
That was the one that I had a question on, because our declaration only says that you have to be a member. It doesn't indicate that you have to be a member for a certain length of time. And really, if we write this in this way, you could possibly be making somebody wait 2 years to run, because let's say they move here in June, they wouldn't be a year in January when the process starts. They'd have to wait an entire another year, and then it would be May before they'd be on the board. So you could have somebody who'd have to wait 2 years. And if you are moved to the city of Bella Vista, you can run for the city council the day you get here if you want, if it's time to submit your name. So I'm not sure that I'm in favor of this. And the other thing is, sometimes we're gonna shoot ourselves in the foot using this rule, because what if there's somebody who used to live here and they move back and become a property owner? They're well aware of, what's going on in the city. Or if somebody lives in a town around Bella Vista and they've been paying attention to what's going on in Bella Vista and they move in. Or you know of somebody who moves here, you're not going to be able to allow them to run for possibly 2 years. So I see more harm being done by this than good. I understand what you're saying about somebody needing to be educated. And like we saw when all the people applied for the open board position, even though we, felt like some of the people were new and maybe they needed to learn more, we were at least able to direct them to committees, or like JB said, to the city if that was more appropriate. So, and there have been years where we've had trouble getting people to run for the board. So I don't think we should discourage anyone from applying if they want to run.
I hear you. However, we've all experienced on many levels people running for the board with good intentions. And yet, when it's time for the debates or the forums, they're lost. And you feel so sorry for them because they really don't know how to answer that question. I look at this as a protection, really. I look at kind of on the other side of that, more of a protection for people that are running for the board, to give them some time to get to know everything. Perhaps it could be when the application is made. I don't know. I'm sorry, but I see the other side real strong.
I see it as arbitrary and capricious, Doug.
I guess you could say that about all these other requirements as well. I mean, the declaration does say the minimum requirement is that you're a member, but then our policies do flesh it out a little bit more. So this member in good standing is another requirement that you have. So I think the board can, if you're discussing it and you have reasonable reasons for why you're putting that in place, I think it would pass muster.
And it's passed musters in other states, hence the article that I read.
Over the years, trying to get people interested in running for the board, one of the things that I've run into that kind of plays into this, people come from other places to Bella Vista, and many of them have been on boards of their local country club and whatnot, and they come in with an idea that's what Bella Vista is, and it's not. this is not a board of managers, because in so many other places, the board runs the place, and it doesn't work that way here. And I run into that over the years. 80 to 90% of the people that I talk to run have that opinion, and they'd been here for a couple years even. So the learning curve to be on the board in Bella Vista is fairly steep. It's a real eye-opener when you get into the situation. And so Sandy has a point, but you know, at the same time, I see the reason to ask people to just sit back and observe for a while. If you're interested, get into the committees and get into it so you know how it works.
We're also more complex with the three-legged stool too.
Well,
so it's
yeah,
big.
well, as Tom says, we're a $38-40 million company. That's not, you know, a one course with a swimming pool.
Or an HOA with a swimming pool.
Or an HOA with, you know, 100.
Well, to Sandy's point, I follow what you're saying, but I'm kind of the inverse. It's not intended as a punitive to somebody, but more of a protection to the community as a whole, to prevent as many people might be injured by, I have to wait an extra year. You're going to keep a lot of other people from just jumping in and gung-ho and go. I think this is more of a protection and not punitive.
I would say as the most recent member joining, that was the advice I was given, was to join a committee first and get my feet wet, get some experience, and then join. And I would say I'm really glad that I went through that process during that time, because I do feel joining without having been on a committee, you do feel pretty ill-equipped, I'm sure, to jump in. But I do see your point, Sandy.
How about if I'll go through the changes and then back up, and then I'll turn it over to the chair, and we can get some guidance if we're gonna keep or subtract some of these provisions. We could subtract ones and still move forward for next week's vote. The next one is and this was in the original one, but I wanted to make sure we talk about this real quick. Originally on number 4, it said cannot be an elected, right now it says official. Previously it said an elected officer. We changed it to official because what is an officer? You know, what we're trying to do, and this policy's been, this one's been in place for a long time, we just try to clarify it, is, you know, we're talking about city council, the mayor, so forth. So elected is the key. We have JB, who's heavily involved in the city on the planning commission, but that's an appointed position, that's not an elected position. So that's, this would not eliminate her ability from being on the planning commission and being on the board of directors.
And every year, I talk to both attorneys on both sides of the fence, and that's exactly what they say.
Next one is cannot be a party to an active lawsuit against the association. So when I brought this one to Doug's attention, he was like, "Oh my God, this is a really good one." I don't want to speak for Doug, but I mean, could you imagine a board member is in an active lawsuit against the association, and we've had lawsuits in the past, so we're not one right now, hopefully, and we brought in attorneys, and the attorneys has talked about strategy and the progress of the lawsuit, and oh my gosh, you'd have the opposing side part of that meeting, or wouldn't be part of that meeting, would be asked to leave. It is as clear a conflict of interest as you can find. The next one is a modification we've had in place. Cannot be a convicted felon. And based upon the article and conversations with Doug, we felt that it would be best to narrow that to 10 years. Always trying to keep in mind a reasonable expectation. Now, look, I'm not going to downplay a felony. That's a pretty horrible thing. But you could imagine an individual that gets a felony for doing something stupid when they're 18 years old, and now they're 50 or 60 and they want to run for the board. One would assume that they've learned their lesson and they've already served their time. They've already been punished by the state or the Fed. So having it forever, we wanted to make sure that it was, the term that we kept on using at the meeting was reasonable and defensible. And we feel that 10 years is reasonable and defensible. Forever is probably not reasonable and defensible. Okay. And so, and then one last change on number 8, we added the term for cause. A director that has been removed from the board for cause is prohibited. Just wanted to add a little additional clarity. The discussion that came up at the Rules and Regulations Committee is, when would the board not remove someone for cause? And I was at a loss to answer that question, but maybe it could be a medical issue. Maybe it was a temporary medical issue that required the board to act to remove a board member, and that would not be, egregious for cause.
Yeah, and sometimes board members remove themselves. They resign, and so that's a removal from the board as well. It's not necessarily that the board voted to remove that person, but they've effectively moved or removed themselves from consideration.
So I'm turning it over to you on.
So just a clarification on your comments. If somebody removes themselves, say for family issues or something, then we're saying that's not for cause. And if the next election came around, they could attempt to be back on the board.
Yeah, I didn't close the loop on that thought, but yes, that's correct.
One other change, I think this might have been in place last time, but under Roman numeral 6, we added, it is the responsibility of the candidate to ensure their board candidate application packet is received by the corporate secretary by the deadline. We had a situation several years ago where a candidate said that they had submitted their application on time, but we didn't receive it. And there was no way for us to know that they attempted. And so there has to be an onus upon them. If they're sending it in at the last minute. So let me back up. I can say that Jessica, our corporate secretary, is outstanding through the process of talking to the candidates, working with them, reminding them of the deadline, if not borderline pestering them about the deadline. The hammer back here. Hammer. But we do get candidates that wait to the absolute last minute, and if someone waits to the absolute last minute and they have trouble with their Wi-Fi or their server or whatever, it's not on the POA. There's an obligation, on the obligation on their part to ensure that we receive it. So just making that change. And that was it for this one.
All right, so let's circle back and talk about Roman 3, number 2 on the year, if there's any more comments on that. Sandy, you brought up a good point. I'm kind of on the fence myself. Jerry, I thought you were reaching for your mic there before we went back. Did you have anything to say on that?
You actually said it.
Okay.
So that was kind of redundant.
Okay. Jackie, do you have anything to add? So what do we want to do? Do we want to vote on leaving it in, taking it out? What's that process?
Let's not call it a vote, but let's call it a, what
What do we want, modification?
if you can give us a sense, because we could remove that passage or keep it in, and still go for a vote for next week. So I just need some guidance. Maybe to go around the horn and give a head nod, yes, I like it, or I don't like the passage.
Yeah. Is there any more discussion on it?
I think it should go as it is.
To me, it's a protection of the candidate. That's who I'm thinking of.
Gotcha.
I don't like them to get up there and try to answer questions and then just be lost. That's a horrible feeling.
Yeah. Keep it in. Sandy?
I just hope that we don't prevent someone that we want to run from being able to run because we decided to put it in, so I'm still a no.
Okay. Jackie?
I think you have a valid point, Sandy, but I think that if they're gung-ho, they can go the route that a lot of us did and learn. My first was on the rec committee, which really opened my eyes up for a good while, and I like it. I'd like to keep it.
I think we won't change it today. You know, we think about it, and if we want next week before we vote, we can, you know, vote to amend it at that time. We don't need to make a decision today, but I would say let it go forward as is.
Okay. Jeff?
Like I said earlier, I think it's protection, and the time spent on golf committee, I thought I had an idea of what the POA was, found out I didn't have a clue until learning a lot that way.
Yeah. Okay. Let's strike it and then go forward with that one not in there.
I did want to make a
Not
comment.
in or not in?
Not in.
Oh, you don't want,
Oh, I mean, sorry, leave it in there. Yeah, sorry. You'll leave it in.
okay,
Yeah.
'cause
My bad.
I thought you just give me the reverse.
Not make a change is what I meant to say.
I wanted to make a quick comment just for people watching. We talked about the felony in the last 10 years, and it's brought up, what if somebody committed murder? Do we want a murderer on the board? And we discussed that probably that's going to get vetted pretty quickly and be made public by members of the community, and then let the voters make a decision of whether that felony was grievous enough that we wouldn't want that person on the board. They would not elect them.
Yeah, and I don't think we want to get into what type of felony is acceptable and what type of felony is not acceptable.
No. All right, so we are leaving it in there. One more clarification. Okay.
The next one is on policy 2.09, so I made, the next two are changes that reflect what we did to 2.11, which is on 2.09 for the appointment of new interim directors. I made the exact same changes with regards to being a resident for, or being a property owner for a year, not in a lawsuit and so forth. So that and the bylaws, exactly the same changes, but those are material enough that it requires those two votes to go back to the first vote, because they're material changes. But they're consistent, so if you look at policy 2.11, 2.09, and the bylaws, all the changes, I'm just using the same terminology over and over again, all three times. All right, the next ones are, all these are for second vote. This is policy 2.10. The summary for the declaration, the summary for their articles of incorporation, and the bundled policies. All those are a second vote. And so those policies were not discussed at the last Rules and Regulations Committee meeting. They were at the previous one. So if you're at home doing your research, please look at the previous one and you'll see the discussion on those. And that's all I had.
That's all that's on the agenda except for announcements. Anybody have anything else to discuss? Nope. All right. Thanks, Tom, for all that. Announcements. It's going to last longer than the meeting. The regular section is September 26th at 6 p.m. here in the boardroom. And most of these are also live streamed, so, Lakes JAC, October 9th, 2 o'clock, boardroom and live stream. Golf JAC, October 9th, 4 PM, here in the country, at the boardroom and live stream. The GM meeting, which is a closed meeting, is the 10th of October at 2:30. JAC, Recreation JAC is October 14th at 4, here in the boardroom and live stream. Board of Directors work session is October 17th. It's getting closer to Halloween, at 9 o'clock here in the boardroom. And the first Tanyard Creek community tour that was postponed, right, from this month, is going to take place on October 22nd at 3 PM at the Tanyard Creek facility, new facility. So I'm looking forward to that. 10 Nature Trail.
And we're gonna have the first tour of the gun range in October also. That will be coming out.
Okay, cool.
Would you put a slot in there for the rules and regs?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
When do you see you meet for
Right
the
bef- we always-
GM meeting?
right before the
Rules and regs will meet
We-
on October 10th at 1:30.
30. There may not be anything, but again, there might be.
Gotcha.
We will, because we're working on changes to policy 1.04.
Yes,
Per the discussion at the Rules and Regulation Committee.
thank you.
The past week.
Jason, I have a question about
Yes.
the rec committee. Was that moved for a holiday, or is that going to be later on the Monday?
14th
And
of
normally
October.
normally it's the Monday before the
Yeah.
other committee, so is that a temporary change, or?
Don't
Just
know.
curious.
No,
so
that's a
people-
mistake. No, it's the second,
It's normally the Monday before all the others, so just,
Usually,
right, so I'm just asking, is that just a
it's the
temporary for
second.
October, or are we moving it to?
October, well, the first Monday of October is the 7th, so it would be the first Monday.
that is the,
the 14th.
it's the second Monday of the month, and the 14th is the second Monday of the month.
Yeah,
Oh, it just happens that it's the same week as the others this time?
yeah.
Yeah, it's
Gotcha.
unusual, but
Gotcha.
that date is
Okay.
correct.
Just so people have it kind of in
Just
their
how
minds.
because the first is on a
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Okay.
That's why it kind of messes things up.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, good call out, Jacob. And the next regular session is October 24th at 6 PM in the boardroom here or live stream. That's all the announcements. Gun range, that will be coming out. Tom, you said?
We'll add that to the agenda, but
Okay.
we're going to be promoting both those tours on social media fairly soon here.
Perfect. Okay. Anything else from anybody? Nope. All right, meeting adjourned.